When my mom's best friend moved into our house, I never expected to feel this way about her, and then her twin sister showed up. The story begins with a shift in the household rhythm. The narrator's mother mentions, almost casually, that her best friend from college is moving in for a while. He doesn't think much of it at first. A middle-aged guest staying in the spare room doesn't sound like it would affect his life much. But from the moment she arrives, the atmosphere in the house feels subtly altered. She steps into the doorway with a suitcase in hand, dressed simply, dark jeans and a soft cream sweater, her hair swept back in a way that frames her face gracefully. At 45, she carries herself with quiet confidence, the kind that comes from life experience rather than showiness. There's warmth in her smile when she greets him, but also a trace of tiredness, as if she's been carrying more than she lets on. The narrator's first impressions are layered. She's not just mom's best friend, she's striking in her own way, poised yet approachable. When she shakes his hand, her touch lingers just a fraction longer than necessary, not intentional, just natural, and he notices how steady and gentle it feels. That first evening sets the tone. Dinner at the kitchen table feels different with her presence. She has a way of listening when someone talks, leaning slightly forward, eyes soft and attentive, laughing easily at small jokes. It's disarming, especially compared to the hurried conversations he's used to. When she passes him the breadbasket, her fingers brush his knuckles lightly. The contact is so brief it could have been nothing, but it sparks a faint awareness he can't ignore. The narrator catches himself noticing the small details, the faint trace of her perfume when she walks by, the cadence of her voice when she tells a story from her younger years with his mom, the way she tucks her hair behind her ear when she laughs. These details shouldn't matter, but somehow they do. The emotional goal of this part is curiosity mixed with subtle attraction. He's not in love, not even infatuated, but something about her presence is grounding and distracting at the same time. It unsettles him in ways he doesn't fully admit to himself. By the end of part 1, the seed of tension has been planted. He notices her not as just his mom's friend, but as a woman, someone whose company shifts the air in the room. He doesn't know what it means yet, and he tries to shrug it off as nothing. But deep down, he senses that her being here isn't going to be temporary in the way he first thought. The house begins to settle into its new rhythm. Days pass, and the narrator grows accustomed to her presence, though it's impossible to ignore the subtle way she changes the atmosphere of ordinary life. She's not just a guest occupying space, she has a way of inhabiting the home, giving the rooms a different kind of warmth. One afternoon, he finds her folding laundry on the living room couch. The television hums softly in the background, though neither of them are paying much attention. Sunlight filters through the curtains, spilling across the pile of clean clothes. He sits beside her without thinking, picking up a shirt to help. Their hands reach for the same piece of fabric, and for a moment they pause, fingers brushing. The touch is light, accidental, but it lingers in his mind long after. She smiles, a little embarrassed but unbothered, and thanks him softly. That tiny contact feels strangely significant, like the world slowed down for just a heartbeat. It isn't just touch that draws him closer, it's the way she speaks. She asks him about his plans, his ambitions, his dreams. Most adults in his life have asked those questions out of courtesy, but with her it feels different. She listens in a way that makes him believe his words matter. Her eyes hold steady on his, calm and intent, and he feels seen in a way he rarely does. On a rainy evening, the two of them sit near the window while the sky darkens and water streaks down the glass. She tells a quiet story about a trip she once took in her 20s, how she got lost in a foreign city and had to rely on strangers' kindness. Her laugh carries both humor and a trace of nostalgia, and he finds himself hanging on every word, not because of the story itself but because of the way she tells it, her voice steady, rich, touched with something lived in. The emotional goal of this part is to deepen intimacy through ordinary, domestic moments. There is no grand event here, just small interactions, casual conversations, and shared silences that quietly lay the foundation of something meaningful. What makes it powerful is the contrast. To anyone else, these moments might seem forgettable, but to him, they feel charged with significance. The sensory world plays a key role: the warmth of freshly folded laundry, the quiet tapping of rain against the window, the soft hum of the television in the background, the faint citrus scent of her hand lotion when she passes him a towel. All of it builds an environment that feels lived in, tender, and increasingly intimate. By the end of this part, the narrator realizes that he looks forward to these small moments with her more than he admits. A casual brush of the hand, a conversation that stretches late into the evening, the way her laughter fills a quiet room, all of it leaves an imprint. He doesn't call it attraction, not yet, but it's clear to him that her presence is no longer something he can ignore. Just as the narrator begins settling into a quiet rhythm with his mom's best friend, everything shifts. One evening, there's an unexpected knock at the door. He assumes it's a delivery or a neighbor, but when the door opens, his world tilts. Standing there is a woman who looks almost identical to the houseguest he's grown so comfortable with, same height, same graceful posture, same eyes. But where the first carries herself with quiet warmth, this one has a spark of mischief in her expression, a brightness in her smile that borders on daring. She introduces herself as the twin sister. Her arrival is casual, almost breezy, but the impact it leaves on the household is immediate. At dinner that night, the difference between the two sisters becomes clearer. The original friend, calm, steady, quietly vulnerable, listens and laughs in her usual soft way. The twin, by contrast, speaks quickly, fills silences, and occasionally leans across the table to make her point with a playful tap on someone's arm. Their laughter together is infectious, echoing through the kitchen in a way that makes the house feel louder, more alive. Yet beneath the laughter, the narrator senses a quiet unease in the first sister. She smiles, but her eyes flicker toward him as if silently acknowledging the sudden shift. The emotional goal of this part is to introduce tension and complication. Where the budding closeness once felt like a quiet secret, the twins' arrival breaks that intimacy open, adding new energy, attention, and distraction. The narrator finds himself comparing the two sisters constantly, noticing subtle contrasts, the way one's voice carries softly, the other's brightly, how one rests her hand gently on the table while the other gestures animatedly. Both are magnetic in different ways, and he feels torn by the dual presence. Sensory details heighten this shift, the sound of both sisters laughing in harmony, almost like a duet, the clink of glasses as the twin raises a toast too casually, the warmth of candlelight flickering across two faces that are eerily similar but carry different energies. For the narrator, even something as simple as pouring wine for the twin feels strange. He watches her smile, but can't help remembering how the first sister looked at him when their hands brushed the day before. By the end of part 3, the narrator feels unsettled. What was once a slow, almost private bond with one woman has now become complicated by the presence of someone who looks the same but feels completely different. The unspoken question begins to rise in his mind: why does the first sister look so uneasy? And why does the twins' playful energy feel like a challenge, directed at me? The tension of having both sisters in the house builds quietly in the background. Days feel louder, busier, laughter echoing through the hallways, conversations overlapping at the dinner table. Yet the narrator notices that the first sister, the one who moved in initially, seems quieter now. She participates, but there's a heaviness in her eyes, as though something weighs on her. One late night, long after the household has gone still, he wanders into the kitchen for a glass of water. The overhead lamp glows warmly against the silence, casting a soft golden hue over the room. To his surprise, she's already there, sitting at the table with her hands wrapped around a steaming mug of tea. Her hair is loosely tied back, a few strands falling around her face, and she looks both tired and thoughtful. Their eyes meet. She offers him a small smile, but it's subdued, almost hesitant. He sits across from her, the hush of the night making every sound amplified, the ticking clock on the wall, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant patter of rain against the window. Slowly, she begins to talk. Not about the twin or the house or trivial matters, but about herself. She admits that moving in wasn't just about convenience. She needed space from her life, from decisions that had become too heavy. She confesses feeling lost, as if time has slipped by too quickly, leaving her unsure of what's ahead. Her voice doesn't break, but there's a fragility beneath it, a quiet honesty that she rarely lets anyone hear. The narrator listens, every word anchoring itself deep inside him. He sees her differently in that moment, not just as his mom's best friend, not just as a graceful guest, but as a woman carrying invisible weight. A woman searching for something she can't name. Instinctively, he reaches out when a loose strand of hair falls across her cheek. His fingers brush lightly against her skin as he tucks it back behind her ear. The contact is fleeting, gentle, but it holds more weight than either of them expected. She doesn't pull away. Instead, her eyes meet his with a vulnerability that feels almost too raw. Silence stretches between them, but it's not empty. It's full of everything unsaid, longing, fear, the recognition of something dangerous but undeniable. For him, the quiet is louder than words, for her, it's terrifying yet oddly comforting. The emotional goal of this part is to deepen intimacy through vulnerability. The audience should feel the narrator's awareness that he's stepping into dangerous territory, yet unable to stop. At the same time, the woman's guarded strength begins to crack, allowing her true loneliness and fear to show. After the quiet intensity of that late-night moment in the kitchen, the household begins to feel more complicated. The narrator notices a shift. Whenever he's near the first sister, there's now a tension between them, something fragile and unspoken that hangs in the air. But with the twin in the house, there's little room for privacy. The twin sister is observant, sharper than she first appeared. She picks up on subtleties, the way his gaze lingers a second too long, the way her sister seems softer around him, more careful. It doesn't take long before she begins to tease, though her tone is playful enough to pass as harmless. One afternoon, they're all gathered in the living room. The television is on, but the conversation drowns it out. The twin sits beside him, closer than necessary. Her hand rests lightly on his arm when she makes a point, and though her touch is casual, it sparks awareness. Across the room, the first sister notices. She doesn't say anything, but her expression betrays something, a flicker of unease, almost like hurt, quickly masked by a polite smile. The narrator feels caught in the middle. He knows the twin's energy is magnetic, she's bold, playful, unafraid to lean close or hold his gaze just a moment too long. But his heart gravitates toward the quiet warmth of the first sister, the one who sat in the kitchen under the lamplight, who trusted him with her honesty. That contrast gnaws at him, two women with the same face but two entirely different poles. The emotional goal of this part is conflict and temptation. The twin's behavior creates a sense of danger, not because she intends harm, but because her presence threatens the delicate, unspoken bond he has with her sister. The audience should feel the narrator's inner turmoil. He doesn't want to give the wrong impression, yet every small interaction feels like it carries weight. The tension in the house has reached its peak. Days stretch with unspoken questions, sidelong glances, and carefully avoided conversations. The twin continues her playful energy, sometimes pressing closer, sometimes teasing with remarks that leave him uncertain if she's joking or probing. But the weight that truly sits on his chest is not her attention, it's the quiet distance that has grown between him and the first sister. She has withdrawn slightly. She smiles when spoken to, laughs when expected, but the spark of trust she showed that night in the kitchen feels hidden now, tucked behind walls again. The narrator feels it every time he enters a room, the way her eyes flicker toward him, then away, as if afraid of being caught in something neither of them can name. It all comes to a breaking point one evening just before dusk. The air outside is heavy with the warmth of summer, cicadas humming in the trees, the sky painted in shades of orange and violet. He steps into the garden, needing air, only to find her already there. She's standing by the flowers, arms folded loosely, lost in thought. He hesitates before speaking, but silence between them has grown unbearable. He tells her, not in grand declarations, but in simple, trembling honesty, that he can't ignore what he feels anymore. That her presence has changed something in him, and no matter how complicated it is, he can't pretend it isn't real. His voice is low, uncertain, but steady enough to carry the weight of his truth. For a moment, she says nothing. Her fingers trace the edge of a leaf absently, her gaze fixed on the horizon. When she finally looks at him, her eyes glisten with both fear and relief. She admits that she's felt it too, from the smallest brush of a hand to the way their silences seem fuller than words. But it terrifies her. Terrifies her because of who she is in his life, because of the risks, because of the shadows of judgment that would follow. The emotional goal here is release and vulnerability. The audience must feel the weight of holding back finally breaking, and the rawness of stepping into truth. In that fragile space, she reaches up, almost instinctively, and lets her fingertips rest against his cheek. The touch is hesitant, trembling, as though she might pull away at any second. Yet he leans into it, and for the first time, they don't run from the closeness. Her body shifts toward him, and when he wraps his arms gently around her, she allows herself to rest against his chest. Her cheek presses lightly to him, her heartbeat steady but quick. The world feels muted, only the rustle of leaves in the garden, the hum of insects, and the quiet certainty of their embrace. After the confession in the garden, the narrator's world feels both lighter and more fragile. The air between him and her has changed, no longer marked by avoidance, but by a quiet truth they both carry. Every glance, every small brush of her hand, now feels like acknowledgement. Yet the presence of the twin still lingers, a reminder that their closeness doesn't exist in secret as easily as it once did. It comes to a gentle confrontation one evening. The three of them sit together on the porch, summer air warm and still, string lights glowing softly above. The twin notices the subtle closeness between her sister and the narrator, not in words, but in the way their eyes find each other when silence falls, in the way her hand rests a little too comfortably near his on the armrest. The twin leans back in her chair, a sly smile curving her lips. For a moment, it feels like she might tease again, but instead, she exhales and softens. She tells her sister quietly, "I've always known when something matters to you." And this, her gaze flickers toward the narrator, this matters, doesn't it? The first sister lowers her eyes, her fingers tightening slightly in her lap. There's no denial in her silence. Only truth. The emotional goal here is acceptance and gentle release. Instead of rivalry or bitterness, the twin chooses to step back with grace. She teases lightly about not wanting to compete, but beneath her words is genuine care. Her presence has always been bolder, but here, she allows space for her sister's softer, quieter happiness. The narrator feels relief swell in his chest. What could have been a fracture between them instead becomes an unspoken understanding, a moment where respect triumphs over jealousy. The night continues with warmth. They share stories, laughter weaving through the summer air, the glow of the lights painting their faces in soft gold. The twins' humor brings levity, the first sister's presence brings steadiness, and for the narrator, it feels like balance, an odd, delicate harmony he hadn't thought possible. Later, when the night has quieted and the twin has gone inside, the narrator lingers on the porch with her. The world around them is hushed, crickets singing in the grass, the air cooling gently against their skin. She doesn't speak, but when she slips her hand into his, their fingers intertwine with ease, as though they've done this 100 times before. There are no declarations, no promises carved in stone, only the certainty of that moment. And sometimes, certainty is enough. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?